everybody, I'm Isabella Negri from Italy, and this is my presentation, Play at Home, the Success of Digital LARPs During Lockdown, the Case of Justice Talk. This is an Autolog written by me. So this is me. This is a brief slide about me. I'm a psychologist, a teacher and game designer, and here you can read briefly my history. Let's move on. This is a slide about Il Congegno di Leonardo. Here is a picture about one of our activities. This was the briefing, for example. Let's move on again, and this is a slide about the history of Il Congegno di Leonardo, which was founded in 2013 by Andrea Castellani and Matteo Bisanti. It's one of the oldest and most active LARP organizations in Italy. We launched the conference DoLARP.it in 2018, and I joined together with Hidalgo Leonardo Buscato in 2019. Now we design EduLARPs and EduLogs for all kinds of people, schools, museums and organizations. Let's move on very quickly. So here is our summary. Today we are going to talk about what EduLARP is and why does it work. Then about is it possible to do it online, and then about the case of Justice Talk. Let's move on. So EduLARP is basically learning from fictional experiences. LARP is an acronym. L is for live, A is for action, R is for role, and P is for playing. So every player is playing a role in this activity. The name LARP dates back to the late 70s, but in the educational fields we name it EduLARP. There are also a lot of theoretical framework addressing the to improvisational role-playing in education. For example, process drama, gamified drama, situated learning and problem-based learning, progressive inquiry, self-directed learning, experiential education. Why does EduLARP work? EduLARP can be used to develop all kinds of skills, and it's ideal for life skills and soft skills, but it's also useful when talking of hard skills. The fact of trying on different roles helps to develop empathy and helps understanding the motives and actions of others. It's like stepping into the shoes of someone else, so you can literally understand what's going on in his mind. And then the fact that activity motivates to take action, so the fact that you are playing encourages you to do something, and it's very positive. Then the LARP represents a safe environment where people can learn by trial and error, so they can experientially learn, not only looking at someone who is explaining something, but they can learn by doing, and it's very important. And then the fact that activity is not only recreational but designed specifically for the acquisition of knowledge and correction of certain behaviors. It's not easy to find evidences about EduLARP, but it's really possible to understand when an activity that you are designing is going well. So how to tell if an EduLARP is working? The first thing is that it leads to intrinsic motivation. So the people who are playing are motivated from the inside and not from the outside. So they're not looking for badges, they're not looking for trophies, but they are looking for information because they deeply want to find out what's going on in this LARP. Then there is an emergent gameplay, so people start playing between each other and they don't need the facilitator anymore. There is an empowerment from the students, so they start believing they can do it, they start believing they are able to do something, to learn something, and it's very powerful. There is a cognitive and affective learning, so they learn how to handle their emotions, but they also learn something about school subjects, for example. And then there is emotional attachment to intellectual facts. In fact, playing helps to learn better what is experienced, because experience leads to feel emotions, and when you feel emotions, it's easier to remember what you were doing when feeling those emotions. Let's move on. Here are the phases of an EduLARP. So we have the first phase, which is icebreakers, energizers. When people start playing, usually they are quite shy, so we do these activities to warm them up and to start thinking about playing, about using their bodies to interact between each others. Then there is a workshop phase where usually they do some kind of short LARPs, or they, for example, invent the characters. Then there is the game phase where they play. The game could be one scene play or more scenes play. And at the end there is the rolling, so the people take off their metaphorical masks and become themselves again, and then start talking to each other about the objectives of the LARP. So this is the phase where we really learn. Okay. At the end we have the follow-up, which is usually done by the teachers, and it's a phase where the competencies are monitored. We can have different kinds of LARPs. Here we have two differentiations. One is based on design purposes, the other one is based on the kind of role. Let's see the first one. In the first one we have three kinds of LARPs: research LARP, entertainment LARP, and EduLARP. Research LARP is a LARP made for game designers who want to learn how to do a LARP, so it's like a meta LARP, as I say. And entertainment LARP is LARP for people who want to enjoy themselves, so there is no space for education, but it's all about having fun. And the third kind is EduLARP, which we already explained, which is a LARP for education. Here we have another differentiation about the kind of role. We can have authentic roles, which are decided by the players, or distributed roles, which are decided by the designer. We have also another differentiation based on the design. We can have freeform, chamber LARP, tape LARP, black box LARP, nano LARP, LARP 360, buffer LARP, pervasive LARP, urban LARPs. Let's move on to the acronym LAUG and LARPs Online. LAUG is an acronym for Live Action Online Game. So L is live, A is action, O is online, and G is game. In 2019, Gerrit Reininghaus wrote a manifesto for LAUGs, which you can find online, and it's very interesting. But in Italy, LAUGs became popular in 2020 during lockdown. We had a lot of LARPs in this time because it was impossible to play LARP face to face, and we started playing online. Here is a screenshot from Victoria Murder Party by Il Congegno di Leonardo, which was a LARP designed by me. At first it was a classical chamber EduLARP, and it was played face to face. But we decided to do an online version. This is a photo of the playtest. For our experience, it's easier to create a LAUG from scratch than to translate a pre-existing one into digital. Communication is more complicated when going digital, so it's very easy to talk over each other's voices, and it's very easy to not understand each other, and that slows the process of entering the flow. The scenarios should be longer when you are playing online than the live action ones, because it's also easier to experience some kind of connection problems. There is an high risk for a scenario to be boring if everybody talks slowly and never talks over each other, but it's also possible to create chaos when people are talking over each other and nobody can understand. Then there is the necessity to design new forms of workshop, because workshop usually use the body and the voice and the touch, so it's impossible to use body and touch, for example, when you're working online. The last thing is that it's important to create different virtual rooms to let more players participate, but 6 person for room are enough. If people are more than 6, they experience negative feelings, and it doesn't work. Okay, let's start talking about Justice Talk. Justice Talk is an EduLAUG designed in 2020 by me. It's based on the satirical TV series The Orville. The history behind Justice Talk is that 3 condemned people within an absolute democracy challenge each other during a talk show called Justice Talk. So the audience will decide who lives and who will be punished. Here we have a screenshot from the first run of Justice Talk. The first run was played via Facebook. It was a live LARP, online live, I mean. So we used StreamYard to stream the live on Facebook. And people watching could interact with us and play. What are the educational goals of Justice Talk? We want to elicit a discussion about certain themes. For For example, biases, heuristics, social psychology in general, and about modernity and politics as well. But let's see what are the roles played during Justice Talk. We have three main characters which are defined by a name, two personality traits, their crimes. So what have you done is what they find in the paper where the character is illustrated. Then some information about others, what do you know about others, some expectations about others, what you think others know about you. This is very important because this helps us to recreate some kind of biases. We create biases through the schedule of the character, and then sending some text to the audience. There is also one facilitator and a playing audience. Which are the phases? We have a workshop, which is an online workshop. It's done before the game, and we usually use a Google form to create the word in synergy with the audience. Then we have the game. The first phase is the background creation with the main players, so we simulate an interview between the players and the facilitator, and they have to answer to some questions, creating the background of their characters and their way of behaving. Then we have a discussion, so the facilitator starts with a question, some other questions are done by the audience, and the characters start discussing between each other, and at the end the audience has to vote. After the game we have the debriefing in two parts. At the beginning we have the rolling, where people say their real name and they step off the shoes of their characters, and then a semi-structured briefing about the biases, which we are going to see in the next slide. This is a slide which tells which biases are going to be addressed in this game. I'm going to go through very briefly. Framing effect, the fact that different words can lead to different beliefs. The confirmation bias, so an overvalue of what confirms your beliefs. The choice supporting bias, the fact of justifying your choices no matter what. The anchor bias, the fact of depending too heavily on a piece of information offered. The availability cascade, which is a self-reinforcing cycle amplifying collective beliefs. The authority bias, which is the fact that an information from the authority is overvalued. And the group thing, so the confirmation of the idea of the group, even if it's the less logical. Let's move on. Here are some tips for wannabe EduLaugs designer based on our experience. So the first one is start from precise objectives and design the LAUG starting from the tool you will use. And it's very important because you can express all the potential of this tool. Like this, use the tools that video chat offer. This is very important because, for example, Jitsi offers the chance to do secret rooms, or Google Meet offers the chance to do some forms, so choose wisely. gives place to a player because everyone wants to be the protagonist, and it's right to give them the chance to be it. Don't rush, because as I said before, it's a little bit more difficult to enter the flow when doing an edulog, so don't rush. And use the workshop to explain how to use the server and solve problems. Think about the setting where the video chat is included as a game element. This is very important because if the video chat is included as a game element, it's easier for the player to get in the flow state. And then never forget about dynamism. Thank you very much. Here are some contact informations about me. My email, my Facebook, my Instagram, and LinkedIn. So if you need something, you can contact me or ask me questions. Thank you.
And we're back with Isabella Negri. Hello, Isabella. Good to have you.
Hi everyone.
And as I said before we went live, I'm probably the worst person to, talk with you because I don't know, let's just say, think about LARPs, but I've got questions. I mean, Il Congegno di Leonardo, did I pronounce that correctly?
Il Congegno di Leonardo.
Il
It's
Congegno
quite,
Yeah.
it's quite difficult to pronunciate. I think that was the worst choice ever to open to an international audience. But
Okay, so
it was not chosen by me.
Okay, so Il Congegno di Leonardo seems like the perfect example of educational LARP. But I'm curious, how often do events like this have that, educational purpose? And could you give us some examples?
Yeah, so Il Congegno di Leonardo is an Italian association. We are all designers. We are 4 designers. Me, Hidalgo Leonardo Buscato, and the 2 founders, which are Andrea Castellani and Matteo Bisanti. And we all work on LARPs and digital LARPs, which are only educational. So we only have educational purposes when we do our events. Sorry, I just forgot the question.
Okay. Could you give me some, examples of other educational LARPs? And I'm curious, how often do events like this have educational character?
Yeah, so other examples are, for example, another EduLARP designed by me, which we are translating in an EduLog, which is Quello che non sai di me, What You Don't Know About Me. And it's a LARP about stereotypical representation, not a very politically correct one, because we encourage the people to design characters which are more stereotypical as possible in order to confront them with the character which is realistic. So we make them work in pairs. They decide one character, and then one of them makes the stereotypical portrait of this character, and the other one makes the realistic portrait of the character. And this is a LARP where they have to design their characters while playing. We have other LARPs where they have pre-assigned characters. For example, the Apologia di Paso, which is a LARP about, sorry, the names are all in Italian. I'm so sorry, because we usually design LARPs for the Italian audience, so we have never thought
That doesn't
about
bother me at all. I love your accent, and I love Italy. It's a pleasure to hear you. So please speak Italian as much as possible.
Thank you. I really hate my accent, for example. It was so good to hear people without accent, and then I reheard me, and I was like, oh my God, that's terrible. I'm so sorry.
Gail, have you heard me? I'm a Paul.
Okay, so the other one I was telling you about is the apologetic puzzle, and this is a LARP about ancient Greece, where the characters have to be Pythagorean disciples, and the characters are pre-assigned, and you can talk with the other ones and find out something about irrational numbers, history, and science. What is important to say is that when we design an educational LARP, we always start from the objectives, which are told us normally by the teachers. And then we start designing the LARP, thinking about mechanics and thinking also about an interesting setting where to set the LARP. This I think it's very good because like this, we have the chance during the briefing to really make the scholars learn something. As I said in the presentation, we have different phases in our LARPs. The first phase it's a phase where we try to put them in the right mood. As Kalwa said, the play should be voluntary, but unfortunately, when we are called from a school where we have to take our EduLabs, the player are not here by their will, but they are here because the teacher said so.
But you crack them down, am I right?
Yeah, it's very hard to take people who are not here because they want to, and to put them in the right mood to play. So we do some kinds of exercises like icebreakers and warm-ups to warm them up, in fact. And it works because at the end they are really, really happy to join the activity, and it's very fun for them. For example, I can tell some exercises which you can do if you want to take some kind of activities in the school. I don't know if there are any teachers who are listening to us right now, or maybe they are too tired because of my accent. And one activity that you can do also when you are using a digital LARP is, for example, telling a story. You can make one of the players start with his or her story, and then call all the other all the other players to bring on the story. And at the end, you will have a completely different story from the beginning, but they will be in the right mood to start playing a character, for example, because they are not shy anymore. Doing an energizer online when you're playing a LAUG, it's very difficult. We found this kind of activity out because it's the most similar to the energizers that we do live, but unfortunately it's not quite as energizing as for example doing other activities which involve touch, which involve the body, the movement, but it's not so easy.
So one of my questions, like exactly, I mean, you faced rather serious challenge because you had to design new forms of workshops. You mentioned that during your presentation, and I was wondering, what did you come up with?
So workshops are a little bit easier.
Activities at all. Mhm.
Yeah. Workshops are a little bit easier than warm-ups and icebreakers. In fact, sometimes we do only workshop and then play, and then we do the post LARP when we are playing it online. I mean. And one kind of activity we do, for example, is realizing the character. So they have to design their character while we are doing the workshop. And it's very functional because they can stay in their comfort zone a little bit. For example, designing characters which are a little bit like them, so that you can help also the shyest people to get involved in the game. And this is usually the kind of workshop we do. For example, in Justice Talk, we decided to do a workshop with Google Forms. We let the player decide the world where we are playing. And it's very nice because it's really easy, and you can also share the graphic that Google Forms does. This is the best thing we could do, because in Justice Talk we usually play with a lot of people. In fact, it was played with also 100 and more people in one of our
Really?
runs. Yeah, that was designed to be played with a lot of people, because we only have three main characters, but we also have the audience, and the audience is a playing audience. So at the beginning, they have to choose their character and to fill in a paper where they put their characteristics, for example, their behavior, and what is the crime they think it is more, it's the worst. So
We had some audio issues, but I was wondering how many viewers did you attract? Did you manage to attract during Justice Talk? You said more than 100, but I'm curious, how did they react? You know, and who lived at the end, and who was punished, and why?
yeah, it's quite funny, because at the end they usually save the character Sirio Nibbio, which is a character very, very, very I don't know how to define it. It's usually played like a famous Italian doctor, which is Roberto Burioni. Even if it's not a doctor, in this case, it is a cinematic critic, and he is usually very hard when he says something, and it's like, okay, it's like this because I say so, it's like this, and then the audience starts to believe it.
So he's
It's not like, sorry?
he's apodictic, you know. He
Yeah.
likes to have a last word.
Yeah. It's like that. And it's nothing like Roberto Burioni, who really knows what he's talking about, that I have to say. But it's very nice to see this kind of dynamic emerging, because it usually emerges also when you're in the social media, you know. So when people are very sure of what they are talking about, the people from the audience always react and say, yeah, it's like this, it's so confident, so why should it be wrong, you know?
We still have time, but you know, for one last question. During your presentation, you've mentioned that one of the biggest challenge of you know, for organizers of LAUG is like a high risk that the scenario to be boring. And how can you react when the things go south?
This is my personal opinion. I prefer to put a facilitator in the scenario because the facilitator can help people to react and the scenario to be less boring. For example, some other designers prefer not to put a facilitator, so to leave everything to the players and to do more activities, for example, at the beginning, so that they can experience when to talk, how to talk, and how their characters behave, for example. When doing it online, as I said before, it's very hard because if you keep your microphone shut, for example, you can have a lot of delay, so the scene might be a lot slower than live. But if you leave your microphone open, for example, you could talk over the other person, and this could also be a very bad experience. So you have to find out the right flow, the right timing, you know. And I think this is
Excuse me, Isabella, but speaking about right timing, I have a festival the day of the festival to conclude, and I guess I have to run, you know, to the main stage. So thank you. I have dozens of questions. I know it was brief, but it was good to have you. My guest was Isabella Negri. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you so much. Bye.